Welcome back to Dan Talks United. So, Aston Villa versus Manchester United, and Aston Villa have won 2-1. Very, very difficult to know how to react to this game. There's moments in the game where I felt we played well, some good football at times, but obviously we're going to come on to it. But then again, we're let down defensively. And it's just really poor how we're conceding goals in this manner. Obviously, my prediction was 2-2, so wouldn't have thought about saying this before, but unfortunately, my prediction is wrong with that 2-1 loss at Villa Park. The hope was, because we've got a decent record there, that we might have come away with some points. But again, it's just, you just feel a bit dejected, really, because it's just a really sort of mix of emotions on it, really, because there's part of you that wants to be really pissed off and thinking, what the fuck is going on? And then there's a part of you where you're thinking, considering the players that we've got missing, and we'll come on to it, but obviously what's happened at half-time, and then also just how they scored. And I was sort of saying before this game that I'm just hoping that Villa's luck from the sort of goals that they score would end today, but it's continued, and there's not a lot you can do about that at times. And I think, again, we've played pretty well in moments, but again, it's moments. We can't sustain periods of good play. We're definitely not going to get 90 minutes of good play out of this team, but just to sustain a bit longer than what we're showing at the moment. So let's get into it and sort of break things down. As I was saying, 2-1 to Villa, 2 Morgan Rogers strikes. First one in particular is a wonder strike, which Aston Villa are accustomed to more recently. They've been getting themselves out of a hole by scoring wonder strikes. We should be prepared for this. Sort of saying this in sort of preview videos. It doesn't take someone like me to point it out to Manchester United. Amorim should be pointing this out in the tactical sessions. And it's not difficult. And again, I've said this before, we've probably all, or most of us, have played some level of football. Obviously, I've never played a high level of football, but there's certain fundamentals that doesn't matter which level you play at. There's certain things that you do. And I've played in various different positions playing football. And if I've played in defence and I've played at right back, you've got to face up to your man. You've got to show him down the line. You've got to put your man on the weaker foot. And you will have looked at tactical videos before the match, so you know how certain players play, especially those players that are on hot form, like Rodgers. You know what he does. You know, if he wants to cut inside, he wants to go on his right foot, then that means you try your best to put him onto his left foot and put him on his weaker foot. Not to say that you can't still score on that weaker foot, but that's what you need to be doing. And I think Yoro not showing player down the line, allowing them to sort of come inside and cause havoc, that's where it goes wrong. And it's not a difficult thing to do. And I know he's a young player, Yoro, and I don't want to get on top of him, but end of the day, it is a simple thing that you should be training this when he was in France. It doesn't need to come to England to be shown something as simple as that. You show him down the line. It's very simple. So very frustrating. Like I say, that first goal from Rodgers, it's a nice finish. I'm not going to take that away from him, but it's an avoidable finish. And then we draw level just before half-time, which I think we deserved to go into the half. We deserved to go into the half 1-1. I think we were in control of the game at times. I think we did well in terms of, and I suppose Villa probably were quite surprised in our setup because we didn't set up in the traditional manner, but again, we'll come on to that. So I think we were good value to go into half-time 1-1. And it's good pressure from Dorgu. Didn't think he had a particularly great game, but good pressure from Dorgu on Matty Cash. Pinches the ball, plays it into Cunha. Cunha's in space in the box and picks his spot. And a nice sort of curling finish goes across Martinez into that sort of bottom left corner or left corner of the keeper. And at that point, you're thinking, right, we're back in the game. Just need to go in at half-time, come back out refreshed. But obviously, prior to that, obviously we've had an injury to Bruno. So for me, that can't say it's a turning point, but I suppose the players will have sort of had their heads down, knowing that the captain, the player that gets them out of a hole a lot of the times, has gone off, and it's very rare to see Bruno go off. It's very rare, and you just know he's injured when he goes off, because he would play through an injury if he could. But obviously it's not advisable if it's a hamstring injury, because when he pulled up, obviously he's gripping the back of his leg. You're thinking, right, it's a hamstring injury. He's stayed on until half-time, which you'd expect Bruno to do. And what you don't want is that he sprints and then causes more damage, because despite whatever people say, I know he's got a lot of critics out there, Bruno has, and I just think you do miss him. And I believe if he does go in the summer, you will miss him. We will miss him if he does leave in the summer, because as much as it's been frustrating at times, and I think the position that he plays in, and again, I've said this before, it's not his fault where he's playing. This is where Amorim wants to play him, and he does try his best, but it does frustrate you at times in that position. There can be wasteful passes at times. There can be always looking for the Hollywood ball. But I know he said it himself. He would never change. He's just going to continue to try and play those risky passes and try and create chances. And that's fine. He's created chances from that deeper role, which not many midfielders would probably be able to do that. So you've got to give him some form of credit there. However, my point is a player that is fighting for the badge, is all action, is all energy. It does come up with moments. It does come up with the stats. And I think that's where you'd miss him for his chance creation, his penalties, you name it. And that free kick from last game, that's the sort of thing that you're going to miss Bruno for. And it's not easy to replace that. And we are going to find that out. I'm quite sure we're going to find that out when he goes. So just to give a bit of analysis in that sort of first half, like I say, apart from the poor defensive display at times, I was quite, if I want to say the word, happy with that first half in terms of the play. I think we sort of continued from that Bournemouth game, and I think we sort of mixed it up a little bit in terms of that sort of pressure and that press. I don't think it was quite as intense as it was against Bournemouth, and maybe it's because of the players that were out in this match. But in any case, I think we had a good balance. The only thing I wasn't happy with, and obviously you guys can put some comments in for those that may be watching, that I feel Cunha and Sesko were, when they were pressing the same player, which obviously that is no good. And you always feel that the number 9 is going to press the keeper initially, and then may go to that sort of nearest defender that may get the pass from the keeper. And I just felt there was times where Cunha was sort of, I'm sure they both pressed the keeper at the same time, which obviously for me, Cunha shouldn't be doing that. And then there were times where they were pressing the man on the ball together, and I think Cunha should have been pressing the player at the side of maybe Lindelof. So if Lindelof was getting the ball, let's say, I think Sesko should have been pressing, and then Cunha should be pressing Konsa, let's say. But anyway, apart from that, I think we had a decent first half, and that's why I felt that we were good value to going in the half 1-1. And also it's disappointing, very disappointing to concede a goal in the way that we did, in that manner, where again you've got to show him down the line, but instead he's allowed to drift into the box, and he's just inside the box there and curls an effort in, and you just think, really. So anyway, that was the first half. I just want to also just mention Ugarte. Now, I don't know what happened with Mano. Obviously, the reports are that Mano was injured in training. Obviously, you can speculate and say that he is being unhappy. He can say that Amorim may have reacted to his brother wearing that free Mano t-shirt, potentially. And obviously, that's what you're going to conclude initially. However, if he's injured, fair enough. But that was a big, big opportunity for Mano to play today. And even if he didn't start, which I think he probably would have done, we've got Bruno that's gone off. So if we're saying that Ugarte is battling for a position with Casemiro, so therefore Ugarte started, and then we're saying Mano's battling for position with Bruno, what happened? No Casemiro, because he's suspended, and then Bruno gets injured. So even if you didn't start, you would have got a whole 45 minutes. So, and I think, to be fair, I think he would have started because he was ahead of Ugarte in terms of coming on as a substitute for the last few games. And I just think because of fitness, because of playing time, I feel that he would have played. So he would have got more than 45 minutes. But anyway, we don't know. It didn't happen. Apparently he's injured. We've got to move on. Just want to do a quick word on Ugarte, and I might even come back onto it anyway, is I thought he were poor. I thought Ugarte was poor. In that first half, I just felt, again, there is playing time. I get that. I get that. If he's not playing, he's going to be rusty. I understand that. And obviously that can be, or you could blame Amorim for that. However, when he's come on in the past, and this is why I think Mano's been ahead of him, is that he hasn't sort of showered himself in glory anyway when he's come on. And I think people always say it's hard to sort of get into the game when you come on as a substitute, especially if you don't get many minutes. However, I just think about players in years gone by that would take an opportunity. They would show up. And I don't think it's always something that you can use as an excuse for me. I just think you need to come on and sort of prove your coach, your manager wrong and say, look, coach, this is why you shouldn't leave me out, because this is what I can do in 10 minutes. This is what I can do in 15 minutes. I can change a game, or I can do exactly what you ask of me. And I think if you come on and you're missing passes or you're late into tackles or what have you, he's not going to pick you the next time round, or you're not going to force your way into the team. So for me, I can't always use that as an excuse. It's an element of why it might be a struggle for players at times, but it's not an excuse for me. So just, like I said, I just wanted to sort of touch on Ugarte, because I wasn't overly impressed with him. And obviously, yet again, it's players that play better for the international sides than they do for the club team, or in our case, international sides, and better than playing at Manchester United. Because again, it's one of those where there's every chance if he moves on to a different team, you would see much better performances from him. And obviously, there is pressure there. We're not going to deny that, but you've just got to step up as a professional football player for me. So I felt as well, just to touch on Sesko before we move on to the next section, is he had 2 chances, and I think we're always advocating for Sesko to get more chances, for crosses to go into the box and that sort of thing. And again, I'm not saying loads of crosses went into the box, but he had 2, for me, he had 2 clear-cut chances. 2 chances where he played through into the box, onto the goal. And again, for me, if you make a run and the ball's just behind you and you collect the ball and then a player catches up with you, that's fine. It's not your fault for me. You can, obviously, as a quality player, you may do more with that. However, in these 2 occasions, I felt the ball was perfectly weighted. It was in front of him. It's the ability to run onto the ball as well. Yes, you can say Martinez made a good save for the first shot, and he's sort of smothered the shot, but he's got to do better there. Now, obviously, I don't want to compare him to Haaland, for example, but that's what's in our league. And there is options you've got there. If you're a top striker, and it's one of those where I think if he's playing for RB Leipzig and he's played through on goal in that manner, I think he's dinking it over the keeper, or I think he's playing it around the keeper. Definitely more composure than what he's showing there, or he's just going to hit it and it's going to go under the keeper's body. But I think he's going to make a better decision than what he's made there. Now, obviously, you could say it's come early, the chance, and you've got to let him off to a certain extent because it's his first chance. It's come early, and obviously he's not had a real run due to injury and what have you. However, he gets another one, which I think was a better chance this time because he had more space to pick his spot or run around the keeper, and I think it's a poor touch. It's a poor touch in the box that's then sent him really wide. I think it might even have gone out. So for me, that's pretty poor that from Sesko, and he's definitely got to do better there. So, like I say, two big chances. Every chance that we could have gone in to the half-time interval in the lead with those chances. And again, if we don't score first, we generally struggle. And although when we've scored first in the last few games and we've ended up drawing, at least we've come away with a point. Whereas in this game, it don't matter how well you play, we've come away with no points. So, like I say, Cunha gets that equaliser. Really good finish, to be fair to Cunha. Good pressure from Dorgu, but that's all he really offered up for me in the whole game. Okay, he'd sort of gone down the line a few times, done a few decent tackles here and there, but he's got to do better going forward for me. We don't get enough out of him going forward. Again, another young player, so we're not going to bash, but he's got to improve because we've got rid of Wan-Bissaka, and there's at times he's not looking too dissimilar. And I didn't like Wan-Bissaka's running pattern. I didn't like him going forward. I thought he looked clumsy. Defensively, you can't argue. The spider, you can't argue. But going forward, and I think whether you're playing wing back or just full backs, you've still got to offer something going forward. And this is where, for me, Dorgu's lacking a little bit. So I'm not overly bothered about him defensively. I don't really notice that he causes too much of an issue defensively. It's more, like I say, going forward, and I think he needs to be better than this. And again, I don't know whether it's a confidence thing because obviously you look at highlights when he's played in Italy, and obviously it's a different league. And also again, another one that plays well. Is it Norway he plays for? Plays well for his country. And as Amorim said in press conferences, there possibly is a confidence issue, but if he's playing for his country, like when, for example, Cunha takes a strike and Martinez palms it, Dorgu's just staring. He's stood still. For me, if you're on form, confident, what have you, you sort of sense that, right, he's going to take a strike here. Let's try and pick up the scraps. I know he's not a striker, so he's not going to have the striker's instinct, but you still think, right, I'm going to follow this up. And I think he would have had the opportunity to either play it back into the box, put it on the plate for someone, or taken a strike himself. But instead, he's just stood, and it's taken an age to react to it. And by that point, one of the Aston Villa defenders has caught up, or maybe even Martinez has picked the ball up. So second half then, normally, or usually, more recently, we've sort of been a team of two halves where we might start a game well, play decent in the first half, and then fall off in the second half. I don't think we really did that. And again, that's the fact that Bruno's gone off at half-time, and then Martinez has come on, the butcher. He's then sort of slotted into the number 6 position. And then you've got Ugarte that sort of played a bit further forward to a certain degree. So considering that Bruno went off, I was thinking the worst, I must admit, because I'm thinking, despite the fact that there's times that Bruno doesn't play well, I thought he played all right today when he was on in the first half, sort of dictating play and sort of recycling the ball. And obviously, I don't know if it was both occasions, but he definitely was involved in one of Sesko's chances. So I thought, once he goes off, we're going to miss that. However, fully aware that Martinez, to be fair to him, plays the ball between the lines very well, and he does that from centre-back position normally, because that's where he plays. But I know he's got it in him to play the ball through the lines. But what he did do well, which I was impressed with, and I'll come on to that a bit further as well, is that it was just simple stuff he was doing. So just going to have a look at chat that's come in. Yeah, I agree, SJ. It's a disappointing result. Like I said on last live, just a roller coaster. And it is just like a roller coaster. You're up 1 minute and then you're down the next, and you can, and I'm sure everybody's doing the same, where if you're like me, first goal goes in, absolutely pissed off, shaking your head, thinking what the fuck is going on? What the fuck are these players doing? Shit defending, poor defending. And then Cunha scores, you think, right, back in it, clapping, cheering. And that's just being a fan in general anyway, but also it's what Manchester United puts you through, where you're up, then you're down, then you're up, then you're down. And that's how it kind of felt in this game again. And where Cunha had the chance to score his second, and it was a really good ball, to be fair. And I think that was from Dorgu, so I give him his due. A good cross from Dorgu. And effectively, you could say, I don't know if he classes the first one as an assist because he nicks the ball. Yeah, he passed it, didn't he? So I'm sure that will be a registered assist for Dorgu for Cunha's goal, first goal, or his goal, sorry. Could have got a second, put it on a plate, probably harder to miss, because all he needs to do is just direct it at goal. And I think that goes in because it's pretty close. He's in the 6-yard box, I believe. So that should be in, and that should be 2-2, really. So that's where the roller coaster of emotions kicks in, because that should, just refreshing my page, that should, like I say, have been a second. So, like I say, second goal, I think I was sort of saying that it was a decent start, second half, like I was quite surprised by that. And as I was saying, Martinez comes into midfield, does a decent job, keeps it simple. And then we do the same again. So almost like a repeat performance where we aren't, I mean, Dalot, who's got the captain's armband as well, by the way, we haven't got enough, and I've said this before probably, we haven't got enough strong, intense players with that sort of grit. We haven't got enough of them where it's got that aggression, should I say. And that's where we come a cropper, really, because in that moment when Tielemans is, in my opinion, going nowhere, and he should be pushed wide, and instead is sort of pissed about with the ball in the corner somehow. Dalot sort of doing that sort of jockeying thing and easing off, instead of just like going in and just taking him out, just slamming him. Even take a foul, to be honest with you, and then you can set up the defence then, can't you? Okay, they could probably still score from a free kick, but you just got to hit him, make him know you're there. But instead he's pissing about with the ball, fanning around, and then somehow he wriggles free from Dalot, who's, again, captain, got the captain's armband on, show a bit of fucking fight, gets past him really easy, and then the ball's just into the box again, and what do you know, you've got red-hot Rodgers, it falls to him and then curls it in. Now, for me, I don't think it hits any of the corners, and I think it's quite central in the net, and I don't know what it is, and I'm going to have to watch it again. And again, I don't want to come down on Le Mans, but I feel, and again, I need to see it again, and again, it's close range and there's speed to it, don't get me wrong, but does anybody agree that Le Mans, when he goes for that sort of diving save where the ball goes quite high in the net, whether it be central or in one of the corners, it never looks like he's ever going to be there in terms of. So again, don't want to hark on from the past because it doesn't have to be De Gea, but because De Gea played for us, I just feel that De Gea saves that. Even today, De Gea saves that, whatever age he is, because I do think it's fairly central, and I think it's almost like, although Le Mans is definitely 6 foot, if not taller than that, his hand never seems to get high enough for me. And he has gone with the right hand this time. So there's times where I think there was one shot that's gone past him in a previous game where I felt he went with the wrong hand. I think Bayender and Onana do that a lot. And I don't know if this is a training issue, and it shouldn't be. And I think it did go with the right hand this time. So yeah, so when he's diving to his left and he's gone with the right hand up, yes, that's the hand that can get the highest for me. Yeah, that's the hand that can get the highest for me. He never looked like getting anywhere near that ball. And that's a bit of an issue for me because I think that's bread and butter for a keeper to at least. I mean, okay, it could have clipped off his hand and still went in, but I think if you're there, I'm a bit more confident going forward that it's just a mistake, and then next time round you'll be there. But I just think I don't know if it's a starting position or where he was in regards to his line. It just didn't feel like he ever got tall enough, and it's very strange because. I don't know if just because Onana's just a fat shit, but he looks taller than Onana. And he's got more dexterity, more reaction speed. So it's just a bit disappointing that he didn't do better with that for me. But anyway, not his fault. The fault for me lies with Dalot initially for not stopping that ball coming in, because I think he should have done that. And then Yoro, unfortunately, again, you're at fault again for not closing Rodgers down. Now, again, Rodgers is a good player, and you've got to give some credit to the forward player who's on red hot form. But I think if you are a centre back who was linked to Real Madrid, and that was serious. We only beat Real Madrid to his signature because probably more than anything we paid more than what Real Madrid was prepared to pay. Because obviously Real Madrid want everything for free, generally speaking, just because they've got that sort of history and what have you, and most players want to go there. But I think when you are seen as a future star, like I say, you are a player that a lot of teams want and after, I think you've got to do better there. And that isn't a case of you've come to England and the players are better than France. It's not even that. I just think as good as Rodgers is, I think that's too simple. He would just nowhere near him. And I think he gave him too much respect where he's trying to give him too much space. And I understand you don't want to jump in when you're in the box to give away a penalty, but you just need to be tighter and just try and push him outside the box a little bit, or make him pass it, if anything, and pass him on. And it just wasn't good enough and not close enough for me. So, as always, just going to have a quick look at FootMob, just have a quick look at stats and what have you, and see how we got on in that respect. So, as you can see there, 2-1, self-explanatory. Just coming down now to the sort of team stats. So, we've got 57% possession there. So, just shaded the possession stats there. Again, I always say, means nothing unless you make that count, which we didn't. Expected goals. So, obviously, our expected goals was higher, slightly higher. So, they had 1.02 and we had 1.31. Total shots, 15, so quite a bit less than our last two games, where we had 27 and 25. So dropped down by a good 10 there. Shots on target, so probably better than last game. Got 6 shots on target there to their 4. big chances, that were equal, 3 each. And then we had 2 big chances missed, but they had 3 to be fair. So, as you can see there, it's in terms of stats, and obviously it's all how much you want to read into stats. We aren't too far off each other there in terms of stats. Also, I haven't mentioned it, I don't particularly feel that Villa played that well, but you could also say that we were something to do with that potentially, because again, they've probably set up to play against a traditional sort of 3-4-3, and I don't think we set up in that manner. So that's just to show passes and what have you. So a lot of our side highlighted there in terms of passes and pass completion, that sort of thing. So, like I say, I think we've done reasonably well there. That's why it's very difficult to sort of be too down about it, as though I am disappointed, I am pissed off that we've lost, and it does mean that we're further down the pecking order, but when you're looking at the stats and obviously the eye test watching the game, you can't say we played badly overall. So just really quickly, just to sort of go on with the player ratings, well, not ratings, but just to mention a couple of players that I feel have done well in the game and man of the match and that sort of thing. Always difficult to do this when you've lost the game, but you've got to sort of put that to one side and recognise where certain players have played well, for example. So, man of the match for me has got to be Cunha. I think he played pretty well in the game, got his goal. He was, again, doing the normal sort of getting on the ball, got plenty of fouls. Obviously, don't always sort of take that for granted sometimes when a player draws fouls. And what I mean is that sometimes it feels like it's stop-start, which it is. However, that still means the ball's in your possession. It also means that there's every chance that the opposition may be getting a player or two on a card, which then impacts the game. So it's all relative. It's all good things where we didn't have it before Cunha came, where you had someone that could actually grab hold of the ball, keep hold of the ball, drive at defences, drive at midfields, get us up the pitch as well, because that's what we've missed. We've missed a player that can sort of get us up the pitch and get us up the pitch without sort of doing long diagonals all the time or just long balls all the time. It's actually a player that can actually drive and then pick a pass, for example. So we've missed that, and I think he did that all game, where he was defending where he needed. He was pressing, apart from pressing the same player as Sesko, so there was something not quite right there. But again, over time, that could get better. So I thought he did all the ugly side of the game well as well, got stuck in. So for me, Cunha is man of the match. Again, please let me know who you feel your man of the match is, if you agree with me or you feel there's another player that did well. So next player I'm going to say that in terms of like a strong performer for me, though, is Lisandro Martinez. I think I wasn't sure what to expect when he was coming on, because I was thinking if he's coming on, I'm suspecting that he's actually going to come in and play in midfield. Part of that's probably because he's played in midfield over in Holland, over in Netherlands, sorry. For Ajax, I don't think Ten Hag liked him there. I think he was trying to say that he hasn't got the right energy for midfield. But what I liked, which I'd said earlier, is that when he's come on, he's just kept things simple, kept it ticking over. Don't get me wrong, he sort of popped it off quick like what Casemiro does. However, although I do think Martinez is good on the ball anyway, but I think if you're just coming back, and I wouldn't say confidence, because I think Martinez is a confident player, but you're just coming back, you're just feeling your way back into matches. I think what he did was the right things, and it'd be interesting actually, but I've not sort of prepared to look at it, is seeing his pass completion stats, because for what I saw, I don't remember him missing a pass. Now, again, wasn't difficult passes he was doing at times, but he was popping it off, and he was playing the right passes to the right people with the right pace on the ball, and I think that's what you need from someone that's playing in midfield, and you wouldn't really get that from Ugarte. I think he's too rushed at times, whereas Martinez was playing at his own pace, his own speed. He's confident in his strength. as much as he's shorter than most on the pitch, he's confident in his own strength and holding off players and using his experience as well. So again, you can't, certain things that you probably can train it and teach it, but it sort of comes naturally, where you can sort of roll your body in certain ways and hold players off. And not everybody's got that, so I think he was pretty good doing stuff like that. There was a couple of times where he's played the ball between the lines, which he's good at and mentioned before. So for me, a strong performer today. Now, underperformers, and obviously I'm not going to go to town on this, but Agate, I didn't think he had a great game. I think there might have been times where he was nicking the ball here and there and being dogged as he is, and obviously having those two South American dogs in midfield in the end, Ugarte and Martinez. But I just didn't think he had a great game today. I think mainly probably the first half, and I think he probably warmed up a bit for second half and did a bit better because he was playing a slightly different role, so there wasn't the same pressure to be that sort of last line of defence, as it were, in midfield, where that was Martinez that were playing that role. So that might have just improved his game a little bit, to be honest with you, and may have done him some good because we're probably going to need him against Newcastle, the way things are looking. Sorry, but you were, I would say you're at fault for the first goal, and then you was to blame, or partly to blame, for the second goal. I think it is a bit of learning curve, but for me, you're strong enough, you're quick enough, and I think you just need to get closer to your man in the future. But again, it's a consequence of having two young players in the centre-back sort of area. I know Yoro sort of pushed out to the right today, and the formation was slightly different, but I think he just needs to learn that for me. And then Dorgu was a bit mixed. I'm not saying it was terrible, but it was a bit mixed. And I think, again, defensively, I think he did his job. It's just more about going forward and creating havoc for the opposition. I think that could be greatly improved. So just a quick look at setup anyway. As I was saying, didn't seem to be that traditional sort of 3-4-3. It did seem at times like there was a bit of a 4-3-3 going on. But at times, unless I'm mistaken, because I know Tactico, a 4-4-2 even, where you sort of had Cunha and Sesko, and that probably led to why Cunha was pressing the same man as Sesko, and they were getting a bit, well, maybe not Sesko getting confused, because I think Sesko knows what he's doing in terms of who he should be pressing, but Cunha probably confused that a little bit. So yeah, there were times where we were sort of pressing and defending, maybe in like a 4-4-2 shape, and sort of then that's how the build-up was happening. And then you had Dalot sort of vacating that defensive space with Yoro pushing out wide as like a right back, and then you had Dalot sort of pushing up to support in attack, but also to support in defence where needed. And then I think Mount sort of dropped back rather than being in that sort of number 10 position. He was sort of dropping back into midfield at times as well to support both Ugarte and Bruno in the first half, and then Ugarte and Martez in the second half. So that kind of like filled those spaces a little bit in midfield, and that probably is what Villa wasn't expecting to a certain extent. So they probably did set up ready to sort of flood that midfield because they had Kamara, they had Tielemans, they've got Rodgers, had Onana as well, sorry. So they were looking to dominate that midfield, but I think the way we played or the way we set up, it sort of prevented them from really dominating that midfield, which is odd, really, when you think about the players they have in comparison to us. So you could give Amorim a little bit of praise for that, but I'd like to see that when we've got a fully fit squad and see how we get on that way. So I'm not saying, I have said, by the way, because like other people, that we should go down the 4-3-3 route, but I don't mind this sort of slight difference where it's a bit of a tactical tweak to the 3-4-3, because I think I'm probably in the camp of other people and other content creators that have said this, that they don't want Amorim to go against what he's strongly stuck to, where he's saying not even the Pope would change his mind. I'm not saying that someone can't change their mind afterwards, and I'm not going to ridicule him because he said that. because I'm not really going to go on that. I'm not going to obsess over the fact that he was saying, no, I'm never going to change, never going to change. I think I'd respect you more for understanding and having the courage to sort of risk criticism that you've actually gone against your strict sort of position on this. So if you can recognise that it's not working and make a slight tweak so that it's almost like a hybrid of 4-3-3, then I don't mind that, and especially if it works. And it's just a shame that when he's done it, the first game we've drawn 4-4, and then this game we've lost 2-1. But I don't think we should be discouraged from giving it a go again. And I think it's that type of thing that you've got to do over a few more games. And if it's just because we've lost 3 players to AFCON, it's a bit of a shame, because I just don't think we've got enough players to play his system. So what I would expect is, if he can keep his job, because who knows, that January into the summer, that we actually start to buy a few more players that can play his system, because he's strong in his system, he knows his system, he wants his system to work, as we all do. But I think for now, you've got to put that to one side and tweak things. And that's one thing you can't sort of knock him for. Another thing I was happy with as well, before I forget, is he's brought on a couple of youth players today. So he's got Lacey, who's a promising player, and Fletcher that's come on. And you want to see that. Now, it's probably not a good game for him to have come on because we're losing. However, you just never know with that United DNA that you could get a youngster that just gets a wonder strike. Lacey had a strike and goal. Well struck, but straight at the keeper, unfortunately. And you never know, on a different day, a different result. But it's nice to see them come on and get some minutes and get a feel for the game, because I feel, especially with Bruno being injured, and he will do what he can to come back for the next game, I think we're going to need one of, if not both, Lacey or Fletcher to come in and just give us some options. So nice to see it. Nice to sort of see that youth influence coming in. And obviously, if they are good enough, which Amorim, I can only suggest it feels that way, then it's nice to see him in the team, and like to see more of it. Definitely. Because what we currently had wasn't fully working. So what does it all mean as in regards to the result? I'm just going to have a quick look again on FootMob, just in regards to league position and what have you. So, as always, we've got Arsenal that's just regained top spot there after their performance. I'm trying to think who they played now. And then City was top of the league for a short period of time, or for a period of time up until Arsenal played, because I think Arsenal just narrowly beat. I'm trying to think who they played now, but it was it a penalty that Gyökeres got, so it put them back up there. So let's see if it's here. Yeah, Everton. Sorry, so Everton. So they beat Everton 1-0 from the penalty spot. So that's put them back at top of the league. Aston Villa, who we've played today, they're in third position. So that puts us a whole 10 points behind Villa. So what do you think that means for us in regards to finishing in the 5th spot? Because I think I've said it before, I wasn't that impressed with Villa today. And I haven't been watching them. It's you only really, unless you're mad for football and watch every game, you only really watch other teams when they play against your team. And today is really the first time I've obviously watched Villa for 90 minutes plus, and I wasn't that impressed by Villa. I don't think that they played overly well. And I've said before, when I've looked at results and heard sort of commentary on it, is that they're scoring a lot of sort of wonder strikes, and you can't sustain that across the sort of 38 games sort of thing. You can't sustain that across the whole season. And obviously, if they're doing that in Europe as well, you can't keep doing that every week. It just won't work. So, and eventually teams will just wake up and start closing players like Rodgers down. So, can they keep in that sort of top 4 and pressure City and Arsenal? I wouldn't be putting them in that sort of winning the league sort of talk. I wouldn't be putting them in the title race personally. You've got to say they are in terms of points wise, but I can't put them there. I just don't see how a team that's scoring or winning games or drawing games from a wonder strike can actually win the league. So for me, I won't be putting them in the title contention, but they're up there, and it's whether they can stay in there. But I think if you're 10 points behind third, and I don't think the team that's third currently is going to stay there, I think Liverpool are starting to have a bit of a turn of form now, unfortunately. And they're in fifth spot there. So I would suspect that Arsenal, City, it's going to be first or second for them too. So that takes out 2 spots of the top 4 straight away there. Then I'd say Chelsea will probably stay up there, so then they might get like third spot, let's say, or fourth spot, and then I think Liverpool will creep back in there. Don't think they'll be title contenders at this stage, but I think they'll be creeping back in there and starting to build up some confidence. And then I'm trying to think, can Newcastle turn it around? Tough one to sort of say. So if that's the case and Aston Villa actually get sort of nudged out of top 4, that means that they might grab 5th spot. And that's the bare minimum for us to get back into sort of them Champions League sort of spots, really. So I'm not sure we can do it, especially when we're 10 points behind third. I just don't know how we do it. But that's where we're at, unfortunately. So, as I was saying, Rin. It's 7th there. Obviously, that loss today puts us back a bit. Our next opponent is Newcastle. It's going to be a tough game, that. Always is. So if we ended up sort of losing that, then we're further and further away. So it's not looking great for that sort of top 5 finish. Still plenty of time, you could say. And obviously, there's a lot of stuff that can happen between now and May, but we've got to sort of stay there or thereabouts, especially whilst we have key players out. Because if we drift, that'll be it. So, like I say, just to sort of come towards the end now and summing things up. Overall, a disappointing result because I think we're good value to come away at least with a point. But you deserve to lose if the other team scores more than you. It's as simple as that. I think performance overall was decent. I think we had a decent midfield display. I don't think that we was particularly overrun. Don't feel particularly that Aston Villa was bossing anything. We had more possession. Counts for nothing if you don't win the game. So I think overall, like I say, it's just disappointing because I think we played okay. I think there was passages of play that we played pretty well. I think we continued the good things from Bournemouth, and we tried our best to eradicate the bad things from Bournemouth, but we still conceded. We still conceded 2 goals, and in this case was conceded more than we scored. So that's where it makes it very disappointing. So for me, we need work in defensive areas still. Again, 2 young boys at the back, and hopefully we can start to see De Ligt come back and Maguire come back, and that might improve things. And maybe Martinez getting more fitness can push him back into defence as well. So I think we'll just wrap that up now for a Sunday. So Merry Christmas to everybody. I think our next game is Boxing Day, so hope everybody has a good Christmas with the families, good break if you celebrate Christmas. And as always, please like, please share, please subscribe,